I just want to take a moment to thank everybody for joining us today for this next session, Modernizing Security, a deep dive into the technology. It's my pleasure to introduce the speaker for this session. Mark Newman is an executive technical security specialist at IBM. Mark, thank you for joining us. And with that, the floor is yours, Mark.
Great. Thanks, Avery. And do you see my PowerPoint screen?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you all for spending time with us today. If you were on the session we just did with Lisa, we kind of talked a little bit about, what the security world is looking at. What are the challenges, especially in this COVID-19 world? And I'm going to share today with IBM's direction, or what we believe the future of threat management is. I'm going to talk today about our new solution, IBM Cloud Pak for Security. I'm going to go through what is Cloud Pak for Security. I'm going to show you, I'll spend a lot of time going over a live use case of how a threat actually attacked a financial company, or it could be any industry actually, and how we within minutes were able to mitigate this threat, bring a team together, and actually have that security analyst do a job faster than they have ever done before. And then again, please ask questions and answers in the chat, and we'll get to those at the end. So we're going to start today talking about this solution called IBM Cloud Pak for Security. It's really a platform designed for companies to actually be able to mitigate threats fast. It comes with a federated search engine that we call Data Explorer. It will allow you to look at all of your log files, all of your corporate data, and look for threats that are out there. It comes with a case management engine. We call this SOAR, Security Orchestration Response. The ability, as your SOC analyst team now might be spread across the geography because they can't work in the SOC anymore, the Security Orchestration Center. How does this mobile workforce now of security analysts work together? Well, you need a very robust case management tool where they're looking at common information. They can assign tasks and work on the process together. And the last piece is a threat intelligence insights. As you mentioned in the session earlier, we have a 14,000% increase in COVID threats out there. Well, how do you know about these threats? Because they're coming so fast and so furious. With our threat intelligence insights, we'll automatically look at all of your security data and let you know if you've been affected by any of these threats. And this whole new solution runs on top of something called Red Hat OpenShift. And the reason this is key is this solution will run where you want it to run. It will run on-prem. So even though it says cloud in the name, our solution was designed to run on-prem or on anyone's cloud. That way you can run it where it makes sense for you. And if you decide a year from now that you would like to go from on-prem with this solution to a cloud, you can just move that OpenShift container, that application, and it works unchanged in that new environment. So it really is a very flexible world. The way IBM did this was we looked at a bunch of our customers and said, what's going on? And they said they have too much to do. Their SOC analysts are overloaded. There are too many vendor tools. As I mentioned earlier, there's 10 to 26 different vendor tools that the SOC analyst has to jump between. Their life is too complex and there's too many alerts out there. So they asked IBM, how can you possibly help us do that? And we look at what's really going on. We started talking to the SOC analyst, and I call this the wheel of pain. A security analyst has many different tools that they have to touch just to figure out what's happening inside their company related to security. And guess what? Each one of these tools has a different user interface. They have a different query language. They have a different log on it. It's all very complex. And as you start to mitigate a threat, you have to cut and paste and move information between all of these different tools. It's an inefficient process. It slows the SOC analysts down and burdens them with a lot of information that's hard for them to jump between. So IBM looked at this and said, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a way to create a clear and unified view of all of those security tools and allow that SOC analyst to be more productive. And that's really the theme of today is Cloud Pak for Security's design point is to make the security analyst very productive, especially in this new world where they're remote, where they're having lots of new threats that are out there. And it's a platform designed to do that. And it all starts with the data. To keep the security tools fed, you need lots and lots of data. So you have to move all of the log files from all of your different applications and information out there into every one of those tools. This is a very expensive and time-consuming product. And it really takes a lot of your time staff to move all of these logs into all of these different tools. So IBM is changing the game. With Cloud Pak for Security, we have connectors that will connect to the data at rest. What does that mean? Is we'll actually be able to read the logs where they are without having to move them. We have connectors to tie into IBM Security QRadar. We can tie into Splunk. We can tie into Microsoft Azure. We can tie into CloudWatch logs on Amazon, IBM Data Protection Guardian, Tenable, Elasticsearch, and we have a whole mess of connectors that are out there. And our goal is leave the data where it is, connect to it when you need to, and that way I can now search across everything. If we don't have a connector for you out of the box, not a problem. MicroStrategies can use our open connector toolkit and build a connector to link to whatever you need to. For example, I worked with a utility company on the West Coast. They were doing a bunch of Internet of Things. They wanted to connect to those devices when they had a threat they were looking for. So they can now build a connector. Cloud Pak Security can search that just like it's searching Splunk or QRadar today. The nice thing about this solution with these connectors is it works with all your security tools. You don't even have to be an IBM shot. We can work just as well with Splunk as we do with QRadar. So again, our strategy is let you view all of your security data without the burden of having to move all of it into all of your security tools from a common place. And the advantage of this is once now you're actually connected to all of your data, magic starts to happen. With our threat intelligent insights, this is actually a application now that will link to all of your data and look for the latest threats. We have a team out there here called X-Force. And what X-Force is a bunch of smart IBMers whose only job is to look for new threats, document the indicators of compromise, document the bad IP addresses, the hash files, the malicious URLs, and then we feed that into threat intelligent insights. And then on the behalf of you, it actually goes out and, for example, looks for these different threats in your system at all of your data sources. So the power of this is I am now looking for the latest threats all the time inside your company, and your team doesn't have to do any of that work. And the way it works is it uses our federated search engine called Data Explorer. Data Explorer uses these data connectors I talked about, and I can now run a single query, look for this malicious IP address, and it'll search every data source in your company that's connected to Cloud Pak. And when it comes back to the result set, I can now look at Amazon CloudWatch logs right next to Guardian Data Protection logs, right next to QRadar or Splunk logs without leaving my common tool. Before I had to jump between tools to look at this information. Now with Cloud Pak Security, I can view these payloads and information right from one single unified place. What happens if one of these automatic searches actually finds an indicator of compromise? Well, guess what? That's where our case management tool comes in. This is our security, orchestration, and response, or SOAR tool. This is based on our heritage resilient product, so it's a very mature product, but yet it's integrated now into this unified platform. And what this case manager will actually do is it'll actually create a case. So if it's a malware case, it'll apply something called a playbook. And what this playbook will do is say, well, when I have this kind of a threat, malware or phishing or a data breach, these are the steps my companies will do. Some of the steps are actually manual, and I can assign tasks to people. Some of these steps can be workflows that are automated, like block an attacker at the firewall automatically by talking to the Cisco firewall and block it. Maybe remove a machine from the network. Maybe kick off a service now to get to have that malicious machine that's been compromised, reformatted, and reloaded for that user. So again, with the strategy with case managers, as threats are found, a case is automatically created, a team is assigned, and workflows are automatically doing work on your behalf, and then we assign tasks to the team. Even if the team is remote, they're all using now a common view of the threat, and they have a common place to look at the artifacts and information, so they're all working from the same playbook. This will rapidly help your team mitigate threats faster than they ever did before. A cool part of our case manager is something that we call the app host integration. The more information you can provide to your security team, the faster they'll be able to mitigate the threat. And if you really go back to the initial thing I talked about with Cloud Pak for security, it's making the security analysts more productive, making their job easier, and removing the friction to their job. So one of the ways we can do that is as we find out information about the threat, we can actually reach into other applications to glean more data. So what we do is we actually have what's called an app host catalog here. We call it the App Exchange. And we have a bunch of integrations like to Office 365, into Splunk, into Cisco, into McAfee, into all these different backend systems. So that way, when you find a malicious IP address, you can actually go out and say, hey, in QRadar, has this IP address talked to users inside my company? If they say, yes, it has, it talked to this user, Gloria or Bob. Then you can say, well, did Bob actually do anything? They found out they sent an email. I can then use the integration to Office 365 from Case Manager and say, delete everyone in my company that received an email from this person because it is a bad email. So again, what these integrations will allow you to do now is set up automated workflows to automate some of the manual tasks that your team did. And I will show this in a minute in the live demonstration. The last thing I want to talk about before going into the demonstration, though, is information is key in a security, especially in this fast-moving world where threats are coming left and right with huge increases in ransomware and threats that are out there. So Cloud Pak Security, as part of its make that SOC analyst more productive, is providing a full dashboard, the ability to look at things like team analytics and your SIM product like QRadar or threat data from our threat intelligence insights, and bring that data all into one screen. So what we allow you to do now is we have widgets now that'll look at QRadar, our SIM product, and bring in log sources, bring in the top 5 rules fire, or your EPS flows, events and events flows that are out there, or your disk usage. We also have widgets out there for case management, number of cases open, cases by duration, by owner, by tasks, by owner. So I can now get a feel for what is happening from this dashboard very rapidly. Never before have we been able to put all of this diverse information from your SIM, from case manager, from your threat intelligence, all on one screen for that SOC analyst that's out there. It will really help that SOC analyst be far more productive than they ever were before. So what I want to do right now is take you through, a little bit of a day in the life of what was life before Cloud Pak for Security and what Cloud Pak Security brings to the table. So again, we're going to talk about life before. I call this the current threat hunt scramble. The CXO goes to his team or her team and says, hey, have we been affected by this brand new threat that just came out? Could be a COVID-related threat that was just launched today. They normally go to their team and go, have I been affected? And this team goes, well, we've never heard of this threat. It just came out today. So they start looking for the indicators of compromise. What are the file hashes they'd be looking for? What are the bad URLs? What is the information I need to know? But for latest threats, less than 20% of it is actually publicly indexed. So it's very hard to find that information. So they have to spend a lot of time looking for it. As they start looking for it, they then take the indicators of compromise they did find and start looking at their SIM tools, start looking at their EDR, their data warehouses, their cloud applications, and find out, are any of those indicators of compromise inside their company? And then if they do find information, they manually then maybe go to a bolt-on case management tool and start assigning tasks by cutting and pasting information from all of these different tools. This can take 24 to 40 hours to let the CX know if they've even been affected. That's not a very time-efficient way to do security. So let's now talk about Cloud Pak Security that has a unified detect, investigate, and response solution from a common user interface using your existing security tools. So here's how it works. The CXO, she might go to her team, have we been infected by the XYZ attack? Someone on that team now will bring up the Threat Intelligence Insights module in Cloud Pak for Security and say, this threat just came out, I don't even know anything about it. Well, guess what? Threat Intelligence Insights is being fed by the IBM X-Force Exchange team. Again, these are smart individuals that's only job is to look for threats, document indicators of compromise, document information about the threat, document recommendations for mitigation. And it is actually feeding this to Threat Intelligence Insights. If you buy Cloud Pak Security, it's almost like getting an extra 200 people on your staff looking for indicators of compromise and looking for threats that are out there. So they feed this information to Threat Intelligence Insights, and then Threat Intelligence Insights calls our federated search module called Data Explorer. And then it looks across all of your log sources, your SIM log sources and your line of business ones, maybe your Internet of Things one, and it can give you a full 360 view search, and you didn't have to move all of that data into all your security tools. We can look at that data in rest in place. If that actually comes back saying, I found a hit, we found in one of the log sources an indicator of compromise, then a case is automatically created and the information from the search is automatically added into the case so that your security team has all the information they need to do this. This is now done in minutes, which used to take days before Cloud Pak security was out there. And that's really the value is threat intelligent insights integrated with a federated search, integrated with your incident response, all working together to make the life of your SOC analyst far more productive. Okay, so with that now, we're actually going to drop into our demonstration. I'm going to show you how we're going to easily detect, investigate, and rapidly respond to a threat in a financial company. Our use case is Gloria Moore. She's a user at this financial company, and she, was lured in by a purchase order talking about PPE equipment that was actually purchased. And she goes, oh, wait a minute, we're ordering some of that stuff. So she clicked on the document, and guess what? Malware was loaded onto her machine. This malware is a live threat. It's called TA2719, uses lures to deliver rats in local languages, which means it's really designed to social engineer people to click on the email because it's relevant to the COVID-19 world. Well, guess what? This threat now has compromised her machine. It's actually stolen her credentials, and now an external malicious IP address or actor is actually logged onto her machine, downloaded a spreadsheet from the cloud, and actually started trying to run queries from the spreadsheet against our DB2 data of customers in the cloud. So this is not good. But here's the thing. This threat just came out. You don't even know Gloria did this. Gloria doesn't even know she does this. How are you going to start finding this inside your company and mitigating it? And right now, you have a bunch of tools you use. Most companies have many security tools. They're using QRadar. They're using Carbon Black for endpoint protection. This financial company actually merged with a tax company, so they have overlapping security tools like many customers like you all might have. So they actually also have a second SIM product, Splunk. And they have their data, as I mentioned, sitting in the Amazon cloud for their customer data. And they're using IBM Data Protection Guardium to manage their data protection. So all of a sudden now, as a SOC analyst, you will have to start jumping between tools to figure out what did Gloria do, what's the impact to the company, a very inefficient process. I'm going to show you, though, in our live demonstration here, how we're going to detect, investigate, and rapidly respond from a single user interface, a single platform that's going to connect to all of these existing tools the customer has. So it's not a rip and replace strategy. It's an extend and enhance and make better strategy. So let me now jump over to my application here. And what you're looking at is Cloud Pak Security's landing page. You see across the top our federated search engine, Data Explorer, our case management source solution, and our threat intelligent insights module. You will also see the dashboard right here. So I'm actually looking at, the QRadar offenses, and right next to it, I can look at my open cases that are out there. I can also look at open cases over time right next to my log sources that are happening over time. I can see the severity of cases right next to my top 5 rules that are being fired of threats that are happening in my company. So our goal is with this dashboard is to provide all that information at your fingertips. We can also, if you're a QRadar or security customer, we can also provide our Pulse dashboard. So if you're familiar with our SIM product QRadar, it's got things like open critical offenses, high offenses. You can look at active offenses over time. I can actually interact with this data without ever leaving Cloud Pak for security. And that's really what our design point is you can actually view all of this information without ever having to leave Cloud Pak for security. So you say, well, how does this magic happen? Well, it starts off by connecting to your data sources. So we are actually connecting Cloud Pak to security to our Amazon CloudWatch logs. We are connecting it to our endpoint protection tool, Carbon Black. We are connecting it to our Guardium tool. We are actually connecting it to Splunk and QRadar. So again, I can now look at the full view of my data. And again, MicroStrategies can work with you. If you don't see a list of one of the out-of-the-box connectors, like we have BigFix and Microsoft Sentinel and Defender, and we have Elasticsearch. If you don't see one here, MicroStrategies can use our open source toolkit to build one for whatever system you have. You might have Internet of Things devices or a specific data lake that you'd actually like to work with. That way you can get a full 360 view. Here's another cool feature. Organizational profile. I can actually say, well, what is my industry and where do I do business? And this way we can remove some of the noise. Too much noise over fatigues your security analyst. So now I can actually pick what industry I'm in, what geography I do business in, and that way when our X-Force team feeds the data in, we'll prioritize it for your industry, your geography. So again, the goal of this is to remove the noise of what's out there. And last but not least is we can actually connect to your QRadar system. And that's how we bring in that dashboarding information, your EPS flows, your events, and all that information, the offenses. And we do that by just simply typing in your QRadar information, and away you actually can go with that. Okay, so let's now get into actual threat that Glory did. Now that we've set up our data connections, we have our industry set up, we're connected to our SIM QRadar, life is looking pretty good now. So what Threat Intelligent Insights does, as I mentioned earlier, is it looks at all of your data, looks at the X-Force information of the latest threats in there, and then starts searching on your behalf all of your data sources. So right here across the top are the latest latest threats in the last 14 days. Here's our TA27 one, and it actually 3 hours ago scanned all of our logs and found 5 indicators of compromise. And it also searched for the Spectre one. It searched for this cross-platform Gluepta one and the zero login one. So again, it's looking for the latest threats that you might not even know are out there because they're brand new, and then looks at your data sources and came back saying, well, one of them actually had a hit at 5 indicators of compromise. If I drill into this threat, you can actually see an overview that was written by our X-Force team of what that threat is, so you're educated on it. It has recommendations for remediation. And these are the 7 indicators that were fed into it saying, this is what you should look for inside your company to see if you've been affected by this threat. And you see that 5 of them are actually found. So what happened behind the scenes is we actually built a query, sent that query to Amazon CloudWatch, Carbon Black, Guardian, QRadar, and Splunk in their native languages and says, do you have any of these indicators of compromise? Those systems then came back to us and said that 5 of them were actually found. So pause and think to yourself, how long would it have taken your team to A, know this brand new threat targeting, COVID, social engineering, for people to click on a email, would even know the threat's there, find out what the indicators of compromise are, search all of the data sources inside your company to see if any of it was actually inside your company, gather that result set back, and present it to your security analyst. When I talk to a lot of customers, when I present this, they go, that would take a long time. And the answer is, it would take a long time. But yet, up till now, this has been 100% automated by Cloud Pak for security. And it's kind of like the Ginsu knives commercial. It even gets better because once we find a threat, we'll automatically create a case in our SOAR tool that's integrated in the product. And this way now, all the information we've learned about that threat will be pushed into a case. And now a team can be assigned to start working this threat inside your company. So what you're looking at right now is the Integrated Case Manager SOAR product. And here's the threat, the TA2719 Lures threat, and it's a malware threat. So what that means now is a playbook was applied. So our case management comes with playbooks. This one's for malware. And what a playbook is a series of workflows and tasks that you need to start to mitigate this threat. So what does that mean? So we've actually done, as we said, in our company, when we have malware, we do these things. The first one is we want to block the attacker IP address at the firewall. So we have a workflow that kicked off that called an Ansible Red Hat workflow script that says block at the Cisco router that firewall IP address so no one can reach out to it anymore. Second thing is a machine has been compromised. Let's remove that machine from our network so that it can't cause any more damage. Then we also then set up a ServiceNow ticket to have someone come in and reload Gloria's machine. And last but not least, we're then going to assign the malware team to start working this and to start assigning them their tasks about what they need to do, interview key individuals, update management on it. You might actually have to remove temporary measures. Whatever they need to do has been assigned to that. So here's the thing is, this was automatically found by Threat Intelligent Insights. When it did its search, it automatically created a case, assigned the correct playbook, which added workflows, which started mitigating the threat. And 15% of this mitigation was actually done before you even knew this threat was in your company. That's game changing in this fast moving world where ransomware and COVID threats are coming faster than they ever did before. And yet I am now removing the burden of a lot of the stuff from your team. The other thing that was done automatically was the artifacts that were found by our Threat Intelligent Insights module were added to the case. Remember that malicious IP address and those hashes were automatically added. But if you start looking at this, you might go, Mark, there's a lot more information in this case than Threat Intelligent Insights found. And that's where the power of our case management enrichment comes in. We have integrations that will actually go out and start looking for more information so that the SOC team has what they need to mitigate it. So if you look at the actions workflow status, these workflows were actually kicked off. One of them was to reach back into QRadar, which is our SIM product, and say, hey, we got this malicious IP address. What does Watson Advisor and QRadar, artificial intelligence, say about this IP address and these events? And it actually came back and said, well, we know that this is the attacker's email address and sender's email address, and this was the user's machine that this IP has been corresponding with. So Watson added more information from QRadar into this offense by using this out-of-the-box integration we have with Case Manager to QRadar. The second thing is, well, once we found out who the user was, we then used our Office 365 Exchange integration and said, hey, if anybody else has this purchase order in their emails as attachment, we now know it's dangerous. Delete that email from everyone's inbox in our corporation. So the power of these integrations is the ability to enhance the data that the team is actually looking at. And the way you do that is we actually have what's called an app catalog. So these are some of the integrations that I'm currently running. We have one for our Office 365 Exchange. We have one for QRadar. Remember I mentioned we're using Red Hat Ansible to do some of these integrations like change the firewall to block the IP address, remove someone from the network. That's using our Ansible integration. So we have a bunch of different integrations that are here. We have a whole app catalog full of them. We have them for Splunk, Proofpoint. We have them out there for MITRE attacks. We have things here for Big Fix. We have them for Slack. So if you want to start using, collaboration tools to notify people via Slack as your workers are more working from home and remote, that might be a very powerful way that when a case gets created, notify someone via Slack, they should go look at it. We have ones out here for example, ServiceNow. Actually, set up service tickets if you want. We have Guardium data protections. I'll show a bit later in the demonstration. Cisco. So we have tons of them that are out here, and they're very easy. You just click a button to download the file, click a button to install it, and away you go. With our app host integration server in Cloud Pak, it's very easy to add these types of integrations. And again, the description starts talking about that, they can delete a list of messages that are results of a message query. Again, we're deleting everyone with that, purchase order email that was malicious that's out there. So once I now have this all set up, we've done a lot of automation. I'm now going to actually, as a SOC analyst, do my job. I'm going to start figuring out what the damage was done inside the corporation. And I now realize that this malicious IP address has been talking to one of our employees, and this is that IP address. So by a click of a button over here, I can start to interact with any artifact now that has been enriched and added to the case. What I would like to do is run a query against all my data sources to see what my user inside my company has been interacting with. So I push a button, and magically now it creates a query, drops us into the integrated Data Explorer, our intelligent query engine for federated search, and searched all of my data sources and came back saying QRadar had information, Amazon CloudWatch had information, and our Guardium data protection had information on it. And it has provided this information in a common format. So now I can look at my Amazon information next to my Guardium information, next to my QRadar information, and I don't have to leave this tool. Value point here is I'm actually able to look at data. For example, the Amazon CloudWatch data, look at the payload, find out a spreadsheet was downloaded by, yes, our malicious IP address here, and I start to panic that customer data might have been breached. Well, guess what now? Right now, I can pivot right into the Guardium data that was from that log without leaving this tool, and I can start looking at a JDBC query now was run by who? Yes, our malicious IP address, pretending to be Gloria Moore. They did a select from customer data using the spreadsheet data that was a spreadsheet query that they found in this spreadsheet that was downloaded, and they actually searched against DB2, and my heart now as a SOC analyst is racing. I almost guarantee a breach probably happened, and we are in deep trouble. But guess what? Guardium is a great data protection tool from IBM, and it's flagged this query as a policy violation, saying this IP address should not be doing a select from query. And I realized that Guardium has actually stopped the data breach, and we are not at risk. So I can actually now share this information back to my team so they're up to date just as I learned this information. So by a push of a button, we're going to integrate our Data Explorer back to Case Manager. I can type in information that Guardium stopped the data query from being run for DB2. I can add this to the case that we're working on, our Lures case here. And I'm going to put in here that a JDC query was run, select customer data, and it was actually executed by this IP address, and Gloria Moore was our malicious user, and a policy violation flag so that it was stopped and we don't have a breach. I click a button, and now it says it successfully added what I learned in this query back to the case. The reason this is so important as we drill back into the case is this information now is provided to my entire team. They are now just as smart as I am just a minute or two later. And that's really the power of these tools now. As your workforce maybe be more remote, working from home than they ever did before, you need tools like this that's going to let them share what they're learning as they mitigate a threat. They're working as a team, even though they're not physically in the SOC anymore in the same building. Okay, so we've looked at this threat right now, and we can start seeing that, this was a threat that our threat intelligence insights found, and we enriched the data by using Office 365 data, using QRadar data. But threats usually are not linear. They're not a silo. They usually move laterally through a company. So what we've included in this powerful SOAR product, Case Manager, is this graph function. What it's now going to do is look at our case working on to see, are there any other related cases in the company being worked by other teams? I see this red dot here is our Lures case. I see the common indicators of compromise that we're working on. And I see over here on the left that QRadar also, with its correlation engine and Watson Advisor, also started looking at things that were happening with Gloria Moore and her IP address and all that, and realized that she was doing some things that aren't too bright. And our user behavior analysis module said, I'm going to create a case in Case Manager also, and that way I will actually create a case that way. So here's what I'm trying to get across with this is Threat Intelligence Insights looked at a brand new threat that was never out there before, fed it indicators of compromise. We looked at all the logs, and it created a case and assigned a team, and they started working it. QRadar now, using a different mechanism for threat hunting, used its Watson Advisor and user behavior analysis and said, Gloria's doing things she normally doesn't do, and it also created a case. And that's the power of Case Manager. Many different things can feed it. I can have Splunk find information, and it can actually create a case. I have QRadar doing it, Threat Intelligence Insights, or I can manually create a case also as I look for threats in the company. And then with this graph functionality, I can see how these cases are actually linked together. And then by a push of a button, I can now drop into, for example, the QRadar case and see what is going on and what it found that's there. And that's the power of this tool is I never left Cloud Pak for security. I never had to do anything different, but yet I was able to do the entire find the threat, detect the threat, mitigate that threat, and respond to it with this common tool that rode across my existing infrastructure. So we drop back to the first screen here. Here's what we got. We started out with our threat intelligence insights being fed in by our X-Force team, lots of information about latest threats. And just let you know what's coming in the future, in December, we're going to actually let you use other threat feed services. So if you don't want to use IBM X-Force Exchange, which is one of the best ones out there, but if you have one that you like that you prefer, you can also use other threat feeds coming in December. So once we found out that that threat was there, we automatically created a case in our SOAR tool. And that case really did use the security automation and response. It automated workflows. We called Ansible scripts. We called ServiceNow to create open tickets to load machines. All that stuff was automated to aid that SOC analyst from doing their job. Then we were able to look at some of the artifacts that were there and then drop into our federated search engine as we dug into the threat and rolled up our sleeves. And we found more information that Guardian provided that a query was attempted to be run, but Guardian protected the data by not letting that non-internal user run that query. Once we learned that information, by a push of a button, we're able to push it back into the case so that my team was just as smart as I was, but just a minute later. Keeping everyone up to date is a very powerful process. And again, I can keep track of all of the cases. Like here's our open case right here for lore. So again, I can start tracking this stuff right from this new dashboarding feature that is here. Okay, so all of that stuff has been pretty powerful. We showed you how we detect, invade, and rapid response. So the value prop really for customers like yourselves is hopefully I showed you that we can investigate incidents faster with this new platform. Our federated search can look at all of your data, not just the data you ingested into your SIM tool, but all the data as you need it to give you that 360 view. We can respond faster with the automations, the workflows, and the power of our case management tool. And that it's integrated with our federated search is very powerful. And this integration will work with what you have today. It's not a rip and replace strategy. It's an extend what you have and make it better and really help that SOC analyst become more productive. We can integrate with QRadar. We work with Splunk, Elasticsearch, Amazon, Azure, Carbon Black, BigFix, Data Lakes, McAfee, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And MicroStrategies can help you get this set up and help you get those connectors you need to make sure you are 360 protected. It's out there. And it can be deployed anywhere. Even though it says cloud in its name, it's very misleading. It runs on-prem and it runs in the cloud and runs in hybrid cloud. So it can run on-prem, a cloud, pick your cloud. You're not going to be locked into a vendor's cloud or into a runtime environment that you don't want. It can run where you want it to run today, and it's flexible to move to the future. Okay, so with that now, I'm really done with the presentation. We talked about detect, investigate, and rapid respond. I know I'm trying to beat that into you, but really that's the strategy, is make your SOC team lightning fast and more productive than it has ever been done before. So I'm going to stop sharing right now.
I think the presentation was great, and I think what was really good was that when we were talking about the different challenges that organizations are facing today, I think as you walk through the different capabilities of what IBM has brought to the table with the tools have definitely evolved to be able to address those challenges, it seems.
Yeah, it's been a platform in the making for a couple of years, and we did it with customer feedback and partners like yourself, giving us what our customers need. And we think we've did it because it's not a rip and replace strategy, it's an extend strategy.
Right.
And again, speed with 14,000% increase in threats. I mean, that's just craziness. You need a tool like this to help your company.
Yeah, and yet there's integration with the services, with the threat and with the services around trying to help organizations understand what threats are out there, in addition to the tools to help them weed through the data that's there. It definitely, to your point, looks at it as a platform perspective on all the different needs that organizations have when it comes to being, vigilant with respect to security.
Yep.
So thank you very much. Thanks for going through all of that.
Yes. Mark, thank you so much for taking us through the software and showing us all the value that it can bring to customers.